One, two. One, two. Is it coming through the monitor? One, two. One, two. Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Good evening. Pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by advertising such notice in the Home News Tribune, the Asbury Park Press, the Board Office, the schools, and on Cablevision Channel 118 and Verizon Files Channel 24, and by filing such notice with the Township Clerk. This meeting was scheduled for Tuesday, November 14th, 2023. The Board will take formal action on payment of bills and other agenda items. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Giordano. The Oak Ridge Township Board of Education acknowledges that the law of this state establishes that members of the public, including members of the board, have the right to record public board meetings using audio or video recording devices, provided that that act of recording does not interfere with the business of this public board meeting. Therefore, the board makes it known that any such recording is to be considered a private recording of the individual and in no manner represents the official record of this board. The board therefore takes no responsibility for such private recording and completely disavows any future use.
Roll call.
Ms. D'Antono?
Present.
Ms. Jodry?
Present.
Ms. Lent? Mr. Marqueta?
Here.
Mr. Slade?
Here.
Mr. Singh? Mr. Sulikowski?
Here.
Mr. Weber? And Mr. Giordano.
Here.
A quorum exists.
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
In memoriam, move the Board of Education acknowledge the death of Mary Alice Maher, school nurse, and express its deepest sympathy to her family and friends. Thank you. Who would like to read the Code of Ethics Corner for next week?
I'll do it again.
Okay, thank you. Approval of minutes. Any questions or discussion? Okay, we will have our report of our student representative to the board next week. Recognition. Any questions or discussion?
Yes, we will have 3 retirees, hopefully a couple more, we don't know. But I'll go over that next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything under superintendent's report or progress towards goals you'd like to mention this week, Mr. Cedeno?
I have nothing this week. We will have our superintendent's report next week.
Any correspondence? And we have our special committee reports next week. Now moving on to,
So we do.
Yes, we will have curriculum.
Yeah. Chris.
next week.
Oh, okay, okay.
Well, we're going to go over the policies during the policy section. So now we will go to hearing of the residents on agenda items only. Okay, moving on to policy.
Thank you, Mr. Giordano. So, in the policy committee meeting, we moved right into a policy that warranted a lot of public discussion, but we do have a stress estimate policy alert 231 to go over, and we will do that now. I'll try and move through this as quickly as possible. There is nothing too momentous on this, but things that we need to get on for first reading, possibly for next week, if the board is in support. So taking these in order from the list that board members have from the policy meeting we were just in, the school leadership councils is for Abbott districts, does not apply to you. We do not have to take any action on that. Policy and regulations 164201, sick leave, you already took care of in September. Those are now your policies that have been adopted. Policy 2270, religion in the schools, not as controversial as you would think. The document has been in place for years. There is a Federal Department of Education guideline document that is important not only in terms of access and implementation of the establishment and free exercise clauses of the First Amendment in terms of religion, but also in terms of school funding. It is a condition of state funding, of federal funding to your district, and this document has been slightly updated this year, which happens every couple of years. So the short version is everything is remaining the same. Religious exercise and expression is allowed outside of your curriculum, not inside of your curriculum, and that applies to staff members when they are not administering the curriculum, as well as students. So that is recommended for adoption as revised, unless anyone has any questions. If not, policy and regulation 2419, threat assessment teams. That is a new initiative this year in the state, which seeks to make sure that a student who has a growing disciplinary record is not a threat to him or herself or others. That is also already a policy of record for you. We did that in September, so no additional action is necessary there.
Just one addition to the board on that one. Although it was required as a practice in September 1 of 2023, the district, through initiatives working with Ms. Calandria's office, we started that in the spring of 2023 as a practice.
Next, policy and regulation taking together 3161 and 4161, because that applies the 3,000s apply to your teaching staff members, certified staff members, and the 4,000s apply to support staff members. This just clarifies and updates the current state law and regulation language on situations where the board needs to direct an employee to undergo a fitness for duty assessment. Minor updates in the process, nothing substantive, if everyone's okay with that. That's also recommended for adoption as revised. We discussed earlier in this school year, the July 3rd massive change in the sick leave law applicable to school district employees. That has been revised already. As a result of it, policies 3212 and 4212 attendance are also being revised, because those definitions have a ripple effect into other policies. So that is recommended for adoption as revised, unless there are any concerns there. Next, the right of privacy policy. There is a recommended update. It is not required, but it is an update to 3324 and 4324, again for certified and non-certified staff members. You have a policy in place already that prohibits students from recording staff members at work. That is a necessary and appropriate thing for the functionality of classrooms and instruction. What the new proposed policies do is extend that to anyone else who is in the classroom, any adult who is in the classroom, from recording a teacher or staff member performing their job unless there is consent. Without that revision to the policy, like the student policy, New Jersey is a one-party consent state, which means if I call Sal here on the phone, I can record that conversation without his consent, and it's perfectly legal. In a place of public accommodation, in an educational entity, you can regulate that to protect your teaching staff members and your educational process. So, board members, your pleasure on adding 3324 and 4324 to include anyone else not recording staff members without consent. Everyone comfortable with that, or any discussion or questions? All right, we'll add that for a first reading at the next meeting. Next one, the policy 3432 and 4432. These are the old separate sick leave policies that got swept up by the new sick leave policies, so we're abolishing these. Examination for cause, 4161, I'm just going through this list. We already covered that one. We already covered 4212 and 4324 and 4432. Next, policy and regulation 5111, which is eligibility of resident and non-resident students. This is all the bases upon which students can be admitted or retained in the Old Bridge School District. This is a lengthy and required policy. I think this is one of the ones that drift above 20 pages. But there is just one revision being presented here. A 2023 revision in state law, 18A 38.3, provides that while a Board of Education can choose to allow non-residents to be admitted, and you do so only with payment of tuition, if you're going to do that on a case-by-case basis, you have to set a fixed annual rate and provide it to the county superintendent. That does not change your authority, it just changes your process. So that is recommended for adoption as revised unless there are any concerns. Relatedly, policy and regulation 5116, homeless students. This is a mandated policy with one hopefully never used addition, and that is per a revised state law from this summer. If an Old Bridge student is displaced and becomes homeless as the result of a natural disaster or a terrorist attack, that student may remain enrolled in the district for up to 2 years. That's mandatory under state law, so that's recommended for adoption as revised. Policy and regulation 5460.02 is the bridge year. That, like the masks, that is a COVID policy that has now run through its active time. The class of 2022 was the last class that would be directly affected by that, so that is being abolished as no longer applicable. Policy 6361, relations with vendors, is an Abbott District policy. No action is required in Old Bridge. And lastly, the three policies 8500, 8540, and 8550, food services. These are mandated policies under state and federal law. And Strauss-Esme is recommending abolishing the two separate nutrition and meal charge policies and readopting one comprehensive policy 8500, implementing all the requirements and streamlining things. There is one option late in the policy. I will speak to Joe and Joanne about that to maintain your status quo as far as meal charges go. But with these clarifications, we recommend adoption of that as revised as well, unless there are any concerns. So having gone through those rather quickly.
Of course, real quick, are you talking about outstanding food bills that the students owe?
Yes.
Okay.
If any board members have questions when the first readings appear on your agenda for Tuesday next week, we can talk about them then, certainly, and that will just be a first reading, second reading to appear in December. And that's it for policy.
Thank you very much. Any questions on those policies? Craig, curriculum and professional development, items 1 through 4. Any questions or discussion? Finance, item number 1, we'll be approving. Can I have a motion?
D'Antuno will move.
Jodry will second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski?
Yes.
Ms. D'Antuno?
Yes.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
And Mr. Giordano.
Yes.
Resolution 1 passes.
The remaining items 2 through 8, any questions or discussion? Athletics, items 1 and 2, any questions or discussion? Non-certificated personnel, office, items 1 through 3, any questions or discussion? Non-certificated personnel, operational, items 1 through 3, any questions or discussion? Non-certificated personnel, other, item 1 will be up for vote. Can I have a motion?
Jodry will move.
D'Antuno will second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. D'Antuno?
Yes.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski?
Yes.
And Mr. Giordano.
Yes.
Resolution 1 passes.
And the remaining items 2 through 6, any questions or discussion? Certificated personnel, items 1 and 2. Can I have a motion?
D'Antuno will move.
Jodry will second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Jodry?
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta?
Yes.
Mr. Slade?
Yes.
Mr. Solikowski?
Yes.
Ms. D'Antuno?
Yes.
And Mr. Giordano.
Yes.
Resolution 1 and 2 pass.
And the remaining items, 3 through 14. Any questions or discussion? Okay. Non-certificated personnel transportation, items 1 and 2. Any questions or discussion? Transportation, items 1 through 3. Any questions or discussion? Supplies, equipment, and services, items 1 and 2. Any questions or discussion? Miscellaneous, items 1 through 4 or 5. Any questions or discussion? Board secretary and board business, item number 1. Any questions or discussion? Okay, moving on to hearing of the residents on any school district issue.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elena Francisco. I am a parent and a resident. It's on. I guess I'm just going to scoot it this way. Is that okay? You hear me? Okay. So just give me a second here. So I had something prepared for tonight, which I will get to. However, I just wanted to address a couple of other things first. Something that I think just kind of made me a little sad tonight, that I heard some words kind of thrown around, right? The word like bigot many times. And it's disheartening for me to hear, just because many of us do not agree with this policy. That doesn't make us what that word defines. We are concerned parents. We love all people. And I feel like I have to say this to kind of give some perspective, although some people have thrown it back in my face in the past, but I'll say it again. My sister-in-law is married to a woman. My kids have 2 aunts. Their cousins have 2 moms, and that's just how it is in our family. And we adore each and every one of them, and we're a family just like everybody else. My issue, or a lot of us, our issue isn't with anyone in the LGBTQ community. It isn't with how anybody identifies at all. I love everybody. It's with parental notification and with sharing of facilities. That's where, I mean, I'll speak for myself right now, but I know that many agree. So I just wanted to clarify that, because that part made me sad, because that's not who I am, and that's not who a lot of us are. Secondly, jumping around a little bit, because I just wanted to gather myself here. Mr. Slade, you mentioned revising the policy, which I can completely respect, right? Because I think that you have, and a lot of us here, up here in the audience, we kind of preach collaboration and cooperation. That's how we compromise and how we make strides, right, for our kids. But unfortunately, the state has left us with no choice. Because if you revise this policy, you will be sued. Just like Middletown, Marlborough, and Manalapan, Englishtown. The only ones who revised this policy have been sued. Lafayette, Colts Neck, Lacey, Homedale, Hanover, Howell, Sussex, Wantage, Kinnelon, Millstone, Bernards, Sparta, and Franklin Township have all repealed with no repercussions. And I understand that the goal here would be to work together, but the state, unfortunately, has left us with no choice. And if you're worried about money, like Mrs. Dodry has mentioned, which of course is a concern for any taxpayer, just repeal the policy. I know that it isn't ideal for both sides, and I hate to say that, but that's kind of the way it's been all night. Just repeal it. There's no repercussions for repealing it. And then I just want to get to what I was originally going to say tonight, so hopefully I have enough time to get through it. I'm going to start by referencing my time as an educator. During the time I was teaching at the elementary level, I had a myriad of opportunities to interact with my students' families and guardians. I taught in a district where parental involvement wasn't as strong as the teachers would have liked it to be. And why would they want it to be strong? Because research and common sense tells us that students succeed when teachers, parents, and students work together and trust each other. I can sit here all night and tell anecdotal stories of how many of my students succeeded when their parents and I were in close communication and developed a dynamic of trust and cooperation. I can also tell many stories of how some of my students did not succeed when their parents, at their own doing, were not part of the equation. Policy 5756 will undoubtedly hinder trust within our school community. If we take away any part of this essential equation, we will not have what we need for children to succeed academically, physically, and most importantly, mentally and emotionally. Open and honest communication is crucial for our children to thrive. If we allow this policy to come between teachers and parents, imagine the breakdown of what we have worked so hard to build. Can we also for a second think about our teachers, considering this is the perspective I'm going with tonight? For those of you in support of this policy, have you thought about the negative effects this policy would have on our educators? Imagine having to go home to your own family each night knowing that you are keeping a huge secret from your student's family, a secret that can have detrimental effects on that child and family. As a teacher, I would never want to keep a secret from a family, unless, of course, like I've stated in the past, there is a documented case of abuse, which we would handle on a case-by-case basis, just like we have since the dawn of time and education has started. Another perspective that I'd like to offer, and I know that there'll be a little talk about this one, but this is what I see and what I hear. How do you think our teachers truly feel about all of this? And I'm sure it's mixed. I know that there's a few that maybe have come forward in support of the policy, but there are many who haven't spoken against it. And I know for a fact there are many who don't want to see this policy stay in place. Well, have you asked yourself why you haven't heard from any of these teachers? Am I done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a question, just a point of clarity for the next speaker speak? Because Ms. Francisco brings up a good point, and it's been talked about a lot tonight. But you said something at the end, but I don't know if everybody caught it. Is under this policy an obligation to keep a secret from parents and staff?
No, the policy, the language on parental notification says that there is no affirmative duty to notify parents. So it is not required to notify parents. It is not prohibited to notify parents. Under the current policy as it exists.
Here we go. All right, my name is Dean Kramer, a concerned citizen. I mean, in fact, I would have loved to send my daughter, who's 7 years old, to a school, but I can't. My wife has to stay home. I'm the main provider of income because actually we don't trust the school. So what I'm hearing tonight is the school is creating a safe space for kids, but in fact, I actually think they're creating an unsafe space. I mean, let me tell you this. I'm not getting into the argument of transgender, whoever wants to be. That's the moral argument, okay? I have my morals, you can have your morals. You can't tell me I'm right, you can't tell me you're wrong. It's called moral relativism, okay? We want to go there. But here is the thing. We are running on the assumption that kids are safe at school with teachers. Do you know how many teachers are arrested every day for crimes against children? Do you know how many? I can go on in every second. Crimes against children, grooming children. And that rate is increasing. Listen, schools were created to teach children on subjects. Why is the U.S. education system failing children compared to other countries? I mean, kids around the world can smoke our kids in academics. My wife is from India. They can smoke everyone here in all subjects. And the teachers can smoke American teachers. Why? Because they're not having board meetings like this. That's why their kids are generally smarter. It's a fact. Okay, this is not an opinion, this is a fact. Schools are meant to keep kids safe, but you're not keeping them safe by refusing meaningful information from the parents. In fact, any school that adopts such a policy has become a threat. And lastly, let's be real, we are discussing a possible situation that could lead a child to make a life-altering, irreversible decision to his or her body parents may not know. I hear what you're saying. But a teacher initially having that discussion could lead a kid to have that. You know what's going to happen? You know how many lawsuits when that kid's 21 years old and says, you know what? I was fooled. I don't want this. They're going to sue the school. They're going to sue the person. So we're talking about lawsuits now. The tide is turning. There's going to be a generation that's going to sue the pants off of everyone who's involved. That's going to happen. So I want you to realize that this is not about this is not about transgenderism. This is about keeping parents notified on every decision the child has. The child's brains are not even developed. Why can't you drive? until you're 18. Now, why not 15? Because your brain's not developed. So you can't take an undeveloped, I mean, your brain's not even developed into your 20s, right? 18, 20, 30. So, I mean, let's speak a little bit of common sense. And I wouldn't be intimidated by New Jersey. These people, you know, they're going to sue you. I would not be intimidated by these people. I would protect the children, not be intimidated by the Attorney General, the threats that he has, because the tide will turn. There will be a new generation rising up. If you think this is going to be like this forever, it will not. People are going to look back at this and be like, what were you guys thinking?
Hi, how are you? Jill DeCaro, and I'm a resident, and full disclosure, I am a member of the Old Bridge Town Council. I had no intention of speaking tonight. I actually, you know, when I saw all of the people that were speaking, that lined up to speak, I thought anything that I had to say was already being said. So, first of all, I want to thank Jen D'Antuono and Margie Jodry for your well thought out, well educated comments, taking into account all students in the district and listening to the parents and the educators and the social workers and the members of the LGBT community that came out to speak tonight at the policy meeting. I thank you very much. I also want to say that I'm disappointed in board members who didn't speak and didn't share their opinions, because as members of the public, we are entitled to know how you think and how you're going to vote, especially on such a very, very hot topic as this. So I'm disappointed that there were members of the board that chose not to speak tonight. My question is, so this policy was amended to the way it is, I believe, in 2017. My question is, how many times has it been applied? So, because I'm trying to figure out what the outrage is, I'm trying to figure out why all of a sudden this is such a hot topic, since this has been on the books since 2017. I'm trying to figure out, it's racking my brain trying to figure out, so there must be a lot of times that this policy has been applied for there to be such outrage. And you know, so I'd like you guys to answer that question, how many times? With regard to statements made that teachers don't want this, things like that, I mean, I was sitting by a teacher tonight at the policy meeting. She was outraged at the people that want to repeal this. I mean, it's not, you're not pitting teachers against parents. You're just creating a safe space if a child, if a student wants to speak to a teacher. That's all you're doing. It's not about, teachers aren't absolutely not going out to seek these children. These children are feeling safe. They're finding these teachers as a safe space. Like was said tonight, that clearly people weren't listening to. It's a safe space for that child to talk to until they're ready to speak to their parent. And all of the parents here tonight, I don't think this policy is going to apply to at all, because clearly you're all loving parents, and clearly your child is going to share whatever with you. But again, it's that 1%, that one kid. That's all this is protecting, and that it should be. It should be protecting those kids that cannot speak for themselves, that are in fear. So thank you very much for your time, and if, you know, when this portion is done, if you guys can answer the question, how many times has this policy, 5756, been applied since 2017? Thank you.
Good evening again. My name is Kim Lindley. I'm a former special ed teacher. I have two children. And as a perspective as a teacher, and my point as a parent as well, I had to speak up for my child who couldn't speak. I was involved, and yes, I knew the laws. But for those parents and each child, I didn't know the child's, one of them had anxiety. It's not displayed. And as far as being communicative to the parents, every word I spoke, every email I wrote, I wrote as my child. I thought of that parent. So communication is being, I guess, not as imperative as it is, and the trust issue is huge. Because if a parent thinks that they're not being told the truth, that right in there is putting a wall, a division, especially with elementary kids as well. And the other thing is special ed needs children. Writing an IEP, a parent has parental rights to be involved in that. What about those children who don't know, who can't communicate? And what about the children that are being bullied? They can't afraid to tell their parent. And then children commit suicide for different reasons. So there's so much involved in this issue that if you go ahead, and especially the brain and the prefrontal cortex, and if a child or a person's not really fully matured until 25, how in the world? And even as they get older, I mean, how can you make a decision at this point which encumbers them the whole life? You know, a parent is there to feed, provide, as we all need. Legally, I'm responsible. Legally, I'm responsible for the get to school. Legally, I'm responsible for all these things. And like the FREPA, what we're entitled to the records. How can that be? Now this is the elephant in the room. So that is another thing that's not being totally addressed specifically. You have entitlements to your rights to your children to go into school, to get lessons plans, to be involved. You know, it is about listening and communicating, but also experience. So as when you come as an educator and as you come as a thing, I'm my child's voice. No one knows my child better than me. And also, what about all these other children that aren't experiencing those children with challenges of dysphoria? What about them? Who's speaking up for them? And that would be my child. I know I would be speaking here, and others would try to. But there's so much involved in this. It's not a one dumb thank you, ma'am. That's not the way it goes. And teaching is not that way. And each child, you have, you don't teach to one child anymore. You teach to the classroom, to the special needs. You have files. And if you know there may be a possibility of a file there, like, where do you begin from that? It's just something that it can't just be answered. So if you discriminate, you save one child, you're discriminating all these other children and their parents. So, and as everybody knows, you have to assess your child to look at their clothes. You have to look at, is there a change in their behavior and why? And as a parent, you're thinking, what's happening at school? You go to the teacher. As a parent, vice versa. What's going on with that child? Is there something at home? Notifying, taking notes. So that's all I really have to say, and then, it's just not one thing. Thanks. And thank you for your time.
My name is Caleb Hartman. Also, I wanted to set the record straight. I know somebody mentioned talking about being Black and diverse in Old Bridge. I actually just want to say I'm multiracial. I'm Native American and Latino, and I was actually adopted by my dad. So I am who I am absolutely so proud of. So please don't go acting like I'm privileged and bigoted, because obviously I'm not. So anyways, I'm not here to bash trans students. I'm not here to force them back into the closet or force them out. I'm here for those kids who can't be there today. I'm here for every single child in the school systems to recommend the immediate repealing of Policy 5756. Our kids deserve better than exclusive policies for the minority that fail to blanket the majority. I'm here for every little girl who could be beaten in sports by a person with chromosomes different from them. Not only am I here for those kids, I'm here to find a solution for all kids. However, this cannot be achieved by division and hate on either side. I recently came across an online forum about tonight that speaks about the opposition who wants to repeal Policy 5756. Do you know what we were called? Nazis. They said, it's time to stop these people before it gets worse. They are like a virus. They also said, we want to control their children. I don't want to control their children. They have a right to parent. I know none of us are perfect, but I think calling someone a Nazi pretty clearly draws the line. I think saying we need to be stopped in a threatening way crosses the line. To whoever said those comments, from the bottom of my heart, shame on you. Your hateful attitudes will not solve any problems, and I hope you see the error of your ways. In addition, look at the people harassing that man who was just trying to express his opinion. Nobody was aggressive to the person of the people of that view, so why was he, a man keenly affected by the policy, not allowed to speak? I fail to see how the loving, tolerant group can be taken seriously after contradicting themselves. Anyways, in addition, unfortunately, trans people can also be abusers. A young lesbian woman interviewed by the BBC describes being raped and sexually abused by a trans woman who threatened to out the woman as a TERF if she did not keep silent. Imagine if that transgender woman was allowed in your daughter's school restroom. Now, obviously, I have to say the vast majority of trans women are not rapists, just as the vast majority of men aren't rapists. However, we still protect victims from unnecessary harm every time, even at the detriment of men. So why not apply the same issues when women rape other women? There are alternatives to our current course of action if only we appeal Policy 5756 and start a movement for change. We can be the difference. We can be the movement of hate, free of hate and bigotry. We can conserve our children's innocence by not listening to the minority who could be here today and not the majority who isn't here. Also, I do just want to say, as a teenager, I think it's absolutely abhorrent that 5756 isn't even allowed to continue. I was raised here. I grew up here. A lot of the people who I played with, a lot of the people who I volunteered with at the library are directly affected by these policies. And I can say, I know a lot of people who had mental issues and and the teachers weren't able to tell the parents because they said, oh, they're trans, and that qualifies themselves to transness, which is kind of weird anyways. But I just want to say, this policy isn't helping anyone. It claims to help people, but it really doesn't. And I think it's a harmful thing to keep alive. I think, frankly, we need to be more aware of how this policy hurts people, especially coming from someone who knows people who are affected by the policy. Thank you.
Okay, hello. My name is Paulina Ziskowski. I live in Old Bridge, and I wasn't planning on coming to this meeting. I didn't even know it existed until a couple hours ago, where I'm sitting in my kitchen and I'm scrolling through Facebook and I see the flyer, and at the same time my dad is dead naming my brother right in front of me. My brother is 17 years old. He's a high school student here at Old Bridge, and when he was allowed to identify as his identity through his name, through his gender at school, and be acknowledged by the teachers here, I know that it made a huge impression on him and his happiness. Even though at home by my father, his identity is still ignored and his wishes are not respected, I know that to be able to go to school as who he is and to feel acknowledged was a huge thing and a huge boost to his self-esteem, his mental health, his ability to focus in school without having to constantly be defending himself. And I know that he still does, because he tells me about teachers that still dead name him even though he constantly corrects them. And I was at the previous meeting and it was brought up that as a parent you would feel devastated if you heard from a teacher that your child was identifying as a different gender at school. Are you devastated that you're creating an unsafe environment at home for your child to not feel comfortable coming out to you and expressing these wishes? Are you devastated that you don't have the relationship that you thought you did with your child, where they feel comfortable telling you that, hey, mom, dad, I'm having these different thoughts about my gender, maybe my name? Because you shouldn't be mad at the teachers that are just trying to, it was also brought up that the teachers are grooming these children and talking to them about trans issues. They're not doing any of that. They're just calling them by the name that is written on the roll call sheet. So my point is that parents were saying that they are not transphobic and that they have nothing against trans kids. But in reality, you have nothing against trans kids until it's your kid, because you don't want that in your family and you're not creating a space and an environment for your child to feel comfortable enough to express that. Thank you.
Charles Brightweiser, a proud resident of Old Bridge. I want to echo something someone just said earlier about the stupid children that we are producing. The Indian kids can smoke them, using his words. But if I was an emperor from a foreign country looking to compete in international markets, I'd be like, yeah, waste your time on something like this. It's ridiculous. We're not teaching kids capitalism. We can't produce kids able to read at college level. We are not producing functional adults. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be living home with a 40-year-old kid. I'm sure a lot of you might agree with me on that. But ladies and gentlemen of the board, I want you to understand this with your hearts. There are good teachers, and then there are teachers that are just doing a job. The good teachers are the ones that produce the productive adults that we want. And we're not getting that because we're wasting their time with silly stuff like this. Now, do we want to create a separate group of bullies that nobody can talk about? If I said something against these GLT kids, they'd be attacking me. You watch. Who's gonna create a policy to protect the normal straight white kids? We need that. That deserves some consideration too. Now, I'm not looking to badmouth anyone or blast anyone. I'm just saying, can't we do something more productive? Thank you.
Teresa Burns, Old Bridge resident. I was thinking I'm not just a resident of Old Bridge, I'm a resident of society. And with that comes a responsibility to sometimes give up something for someone else. I'm going to say something controversial, and if you have any questions about me personally, you can ask me on the side. I'm unapologetically pro-life to the extent that if it saves one life, I give up something. And I support this policy as is. It is proven to save one, and that's it. And to the gentleman who said that they don't want somebody in their house at the age of 40, I feel for you. I am so blessed to have 2 children that I would keep in my house to the day that I die, whether they be gay, trans, or whatever. Thank you.
Gerald Maglio, Neptune. I'm the director of the Dolores Turco Foundation, and we protect children from potential harm. Our mission is to protect children from abuse and exploitation, and I urge you to repeal the 5756. We believe that every person is created in the image and likeness of God and deserving of love, so we do not discriminate for any reason, including gender. I'd like to begin with a few words for our friends in the LGBT community. We are not your enemy. We are parents who love our children with all their faults. We love you too, and we want the best for you. Your body, though, was created by God with a specific plan, meaning, and purpose. He knows you intimately and he loves you passionately. You do not have to change one thing about your body or yourself. Just seek and follow the will of God and his design for your life, and you will know peace, joy, and love.
Excuse me, sorry, could you just address the board? Sorry, no, we can't.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Thank
sorry,
you
that's
for
okay.
allowing me to. I'm sorry, am I not looking in the right place? This is a little difficult. Okay, couple of things that I do want to point out. One does have to do with the mental health of teens and the false, incorrect, and inaccurate information. I'd like to point out the scientific evidence has shown that cross-sex medical treatment for children are harmful. 19 states have restricted these procedures. Counseling and watchful waiting is recommended instead. In fact, the transgender experiment is being recognized nationally and internationally as the biggest child abuse scandal of our time. Consequently, the Congress has introduced 2 bills, Protecting Children from Experimentation Act and the End Taxpayer Funding of Gender Experimentation Act. that would prohibit transgender procedures on minors nationwide and would prohibit taxpayer funding of these procedures regardless of age. Second thing, the transition or suicide claim that parents must choose between a live trans son or a dead daughter, or vice versa, is not supported by scientific evidence. In fact, the landmark Swedish study shows that transgender patients, as far as 30 years after surgery, found that after the sex reassignment surgery, the transgender patient was 19 times more likely to commit suicide than the rest of the population. You probably heard about the cultural and social factors that have a significant influence on whether a young person identifies as transgender, the peer influence, I think you've heard of that, and there is no scientific evidence showing that young children benefit from being taught in school sexuality, transgender identity, or homosexuality. Instead, it normalizes sex and anal sex and porn, promotes contraception, and contributes to the STD epidemic. I just want to make a couple points on the law. Parents do have a fundamental right under the 5th, 9th, and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution to direct the upbringing, education, and care of their minor children. Federal courts are striking down illegal and unconstitutional policies that infringe on parental rights. A San Diego court ruled against the governor and state of California regarding a policy such as New Jersey has, preventing notifying parents when the children want to change their genders, stating, quote, "A parent's right to make decisions concerning care, custody, control, and medical care of their children is one of the oldest fundamental liberty interests that Americans enjoy." And recently, a California school district paid $100,000 to a mom and her daughter for a policy that kept parents in the dark about gender identity. Excuse me, that brings up the Hanover. Hanover, their legal fees are being paid for by insurance, just to let you know. Taxpayers are not paying for those legal fees. And another district court that also made a decision regarding policies that are contrary to parental rights, that court stated there is a trifecta harm. It harms the child who needs parental guidance and possibly mental health intervention. It also harms the parents by providing them of long recognized 14th Amendment right to care and guide in healthcare decisions. But finally, it also harms the administration and staff of the schools who are compelled to violate the parental rights by forcing them to conceal information they feel that is critical for the welfare of their students. There's only one other point that I wanted to make regarding, oh, yes, I did want to point out that a 2021 CDC report shows stark increases in poor mental health in teens, especially among girls. 60% of the American female girls. Oh,
Sorry.
That's it.
Sorry, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Terry Esposito. I'm a Hull resident. I have two of my boys live here in Old Bridge, and one of my grandsons live here in Old Bridge as well. I'm speaking for them on their behalf as well. Someone had stood up to delegitimize the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons' comments on one of the policies, that MIR 5756. I just wanted to say that they've been around since 1943. They're established, they've served thousands and thousands of patients in the state of New Jersey. Their policy is to limit government, individual liberty, personal responsibility, limited government, and the ability to freely practice medicine according to time-honored Hippocratic principles. They're a legitimate organization. They're legitimate doctors and surgeons, and I would respect their opinion. They do stand against these policies that are in effect. Sorry, I'm a little all over the place. Just importantly, what they were saying, again, the most important takeaway here is that no information can be properly withheld from a child's parents, particularly and especially when it comes to the medical and mental health of their children. The current New Jersey BOE disruptive amendments will create an adversarial relationship between child and parent and teacher, potentially fueling a dangerous and life-threatening environment. So I'm just going to throw this out there. When a child is developing an interest in gender dysphoria, considering the reasons for this happening to children, they're attacked on every level of their young psyche. It's what they watch on TV, Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, PBS, Disney, shows like Arthur, My Little Pony, Sesame Street, Rugrats, Doc McStuffins, Blue's Clues. It's everywhere. It's in their conversations, you know, when they're talking to their friends. It's what they watch on TV, social media. They're being stalked by predators on social media that they have no idea who they are. They think they're somebody their age. My sister was one of the original cyber angels, and she tracked pedophiles online, and she taught the FBI. She gave courses to the FBI on how to track these people who go after children and who pose as children themselves. And she knows the deep, dark secrets that social media hides, and the children are being attacked. And if you have a child who's interested in gender dysphoria and changing their pronouns, or you know, their sex, and you know, they're being sexualized from all these things that are coming into their little minds as they go through their day-to-day lives, just watching TV or being online on social media. We're talking kids, you know, from ages 5 to 14 years old. You have to ask yourself, what's influencing them? Maybe the parents need to know about this so that they can find out if they're being tracked by a pedophile, or if maybe they're going over to one of their friends' houses and there's an adult there in the house that's making suggestive comments to them. You know, you have to find out what's going on in this child's life. The parents need to know so that they can find out what's going on, so that they can keep better track of their child's social media, you know, interactions, so they can keep better track of what is going on in, you know, the TV shows and the cartoons that these children are watching while their parents are busy with something else. Parents need to know, because they have a responsibility to protect their child, and maybe they don't know that they're being tracked by a predator, by a pedophile. You know, I mean, these things happen on a daily basis, and happening more and more and more as our kids are being victimized. So parents need to know, and there should be a regulation in place that accommodates the parents, and that the teachers should be required to tell the parents, not just their obligation or their choice, whether they should or not, based on their own personal judgment. They should be required to tell the parents when a child experiences gender dysphoria, so that the parents can find out where this is coming from, what the background is, you know, protect their child. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mira, a transgender girl living in Old Bridge, New Jersey. Personally, I view what people are saying as obviously diverse, and everyone has different opinions, but as someone who has done research and has experienced things in the fields of sports, school, and home life, I would like to put my opinion in. My grandparents and most of my dad's side have disowned me, and I haven't seen them for a while because they don't accept me. Trans people who are going through HRT, which means hormone replacement therapy, have lower testosterone levels than the average girl, meaning the debate on if a trans person deserves to join sports means nothing. And Mr. Slade, may I just say, I love playing field hockey and I love playing sports. I love being in a team and I thrive in social groups. When I started, I was the worst on my team. Now I'm barely in the top 5 best players on my team. This policy is extremely important for people that need it. And I feel as if the people who are speaking for this cause are constantly repeating themselves because the people on the opposing side won't listen. I've heard people compare this policy to people going through substance abuse and home life abuse, which is completely different from a gender identity. One in someone's identity and one in someone's way of coping with something. Please, for the sake of transgender children and the overall small group of kids that need this policy, and the reason that this policy is in place, please keep it. Thank you.
Hello. Oh, that's loud. Jeez. Hello, my name is Christina, and I'm an Old Bridge resident, parent, and incoming Board of Ed member. So I think what everyone is confused about is that people who are repealing this policy are being targeted as being against the LGBTQ community, and that's not what this is. Obviously, not being a part of the community, I can't say how you feel, and I can only talk for myself. The problem we have with this policy is about important life-altering information about our children being kept from us. A big topic right now is inclusion, but how is this policy inclusive for all 8,000 plus students? How does this policy protect all children? We live in America where we have the right to have our own opinion. We shouldn't be called bigots for thinking differently than you do. In my opinion, children change their minds a million times throughout their childhood. How is it okay that something that is so permanent be kept from these children's parents? Schools across the nation are short-staffed with teachers because educators do not want to deal with all the nonsense that comes with the job anymore. When my child comes home and doesn't know what a signature is, that's a problem. You want to protect the children who are part of the LGBTQ community, but how does this policy actually protect them? As everyone has stated, this policy has been in effect since 2017, but yet the violence is still happening. It is great when a child who doesn't have supportive parents at home feels safe to speak to their teacher, and that shouldn't change. But at the end of the day, when school is over, these students still have to go home to those parents. On the weekends, and even when these children graduate, these children still have to live with these parents, so who's gonna protect them then? At some point, these children have to face their parents, so wouldn't it be easier for them to address their parents with the help of a teacher or guidance counselor? People who can actually help educate the parents on this topic. Please, let's keep school to learning. Our kids need that, and the future needs that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Francis. I'm a local resident residing nearby South Amboy. And I'm speaking on behalf of Gays Against Groomers, New Jersey chapter, and we're a nonprofit organization advocating for parental rights all across the country. I'm speaking with you tonight because I and many others across New Jersey, including parents, are deeply concerned about the problematic consequences that are bound to come into the Old Bridge School District by lying and keeping secrets from students' parents by abolishing parental rights with Policy 5756. Parents have every right to know if their child is sharing a bathroom with the opposite sex. Parents have every right to know if their child is LGBT. Parents have every right to know if their child is in mental turmoil, and parents knowing who their children are is nonpartisan. New Jersey law also prohibits discrimination based on race, sexual orientation, religion, and ethnicity, yet school districts around the state have adapted this vile policy 5756, which prohibits the parent to be notified if their child is in a mental crisis. To think this is even a good idea is irresponsible and immoral. It is astronomically repulsive that school districts throughout New Jersey are calling parents who want to know about their child's academic life that they're being called bigots, homophobes, and transphobes. Your school cannot be parenting other people's children. Your school cannot influence children with your politics and ideology. Being proactive, encouraging students to be the best that they can be is what has always been done. Indoctrinating children into thinking they're victims or oppressors is evil Marxist ideology and must be stopped immediately here and across the state of New Jersey. Policy 5756 needs to be erased, and all students deserve help from their parents. Parental rights is a nonpartisan issue, and never was and never will be. Parents, not the Department of Education in New Jersey and across the country, need to be raising their own kids. We will not stop until you leave the kids alone. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy. I live in Matawan. And I hope I wasn't too hard with the board in the previous policy meeting when I said, I don't see diversity on the board. That might be true. But, I have talked to a lot of you. And, and I know many are supportive of the LGBTQ plus community. And, I know many of you have an open mind as well. It's so hard. First, it's hard to be here. And, you know, to listen, everyone is so passionate. You have so many facts that are being thrown at you, some pseudo facts, some you don't even know, right? Maybe you'll Google them later on tonight. You know, and I would just rely on the people that you are on the board with that spoke tonight. You know, Jen, she shared, you know, what can be done as far as if, you know, a student feels unsafe to use a bathroom, that they can ask for a private space. You know, I just feel that so many people, they don't know and they can't relate because it hasn't happened to them. There's no way that you can feel exactly, you know, how much this affects a person. And I know parents, they're so worried, you know, that something's going to be held back and something that they won't be able to, you know, get information from their kid. But like, there are so many laws in place that, and good teachers that, you know, they will talk to you if there's a behavior problem. If a kid is struggling with a mental health issue, a good teacher is going to collaborate and talk to the parent. Like, there are going to be signs. You know, all we're talking about right here is gender identity for a transgender child. It doesn't affect most parents. We're making it about ourselves, but it really doesn't. It's such a small percentage of students that need to be protected. Just sharing, you know, when I had the courage to come out, you know, I didn't tell my parents first. You know, I told my friends. And just being able to do that, it was such a relief. You know, it was a heavy burden that was lifted from me. It was the best feeling in the world. So to be able to tell, you know, a teacher, to be able to tell someone else besides my parent, that gave me the strength. That gave me, you know, the courage. There's so many, you guys don't understand that aren't part of the LGBTQ+ community, how it affects you. How it affects you on such a deep level. And to be able to share that with someone is the most beautiful thing. And it will be beautiful when you have the courage to share it with your parent too. And there were so many loving parents here today that said they love their children. I promise you that child will come to you and tell you when they are ready. And that is a beautiful thing that happens too. And to lose that, you're gonna regret it. So, I mean, that's it. I just hope that you please protect the transgender kids. That's most important. So thank you, board, for keeping an open mind.
Hello again. I've never been to one of these. I'll come more, I promise. My name is Ann. I'm a nurse and a mom of 3 in Old Bridge, and I heard a lot of people from Old Bridge speak, and I feel like I'm in the movie Footloose, and I feel like people are gonna say we're gonna ban rock music and dancing. And I feel like this policy has been in effect for 6 years, no problem. I feel like we're politicizing this. You're letting, like, the big machine change a protection for such a small group of people. And I really just wish that you would really rethink changing things when it's been working. So, thank you.
Hi, I decided I would get up and speak again because as I listen to comments, I'm Carolyn from Old Bridge. As I hear comments, I hear a lot about protecting the children. In fact, one of the board members that spoke earlier, he said his first priority is safety for all. I think all of us can agree, safety, yes, number one. And I do think that with all the discussion about trans because of 5756, I think we are forgetting the safety of the majority of the students. I'm hearing unsolicited by me, more and more girls are afraid to use the bathroom, and they will go all day long without using the bathroom because they're afraid of a boy being in the restroom. And it's been suggested that those students who are afraid to use the restroom, that they would line up and use the nurse's restroom. And these are students in Old Bridge. And it's students in Matawan as well. This isn't just a problem in Old Bridge. It is because of this policy. And I think if we really are concerned about safety for all, we do have to consider all the students. And these girls who, you know, that should be something they never have to think about or worry about, being able to use the bathroom. I think that's the least our schools can do for our kids, is make sure they have a safe place to go and use the toilet when they need to. They shouldn't be fearful that when they go in the locker room that a boy could be in there. I can't imagine. I graduated from high school in 1976. There was no such thing at that time as trans students, and I certainly had no fear going into a restroom that a boy might be in there. So those children do not feel safe, and that is a much greater majority than the children, than the percentage of trans children. Even the lexicon that's being created, where we call just normal kids cisgender, a pretty derogatory term. I feel bad for kids in school today contending with all of this. It really makes learning difficult. I also just want to say, don't underestimate the value of a parent being involved in their child's, knowing everything that's going on with your child. My father was a teacher, and I grew up in Florida in the 60s. He taught down there in public school. He read the Bible to his students every morning. That was not uncommon. And that is what kids my generation, a lot of them grew up with. We've come a long way since then, not for the better. I think we're losing freedoms, rights and freedoms that we enjoyed, not that long ago. I also want to say, with regards to don't underestimate a parent, we had a special needs child who passed away 10 years ago, born with a heart defect. And I spent months sitting at his bedside while he was in the ICU on a ventilator. And one thing I learned during that time, the doctors and the nurses all said, the parents recognize a problem before we, the doctors, do. And I saw that it was true many times. I knew something was wrong with my son before anything came out in the labs that they were checking or the tests that they were doing. I knew something had changed. And I think that is part of what is being underestimated and undervalued and ignored when we talk about should the parents be involved or should they not. Should a teacher be required to tell a parent when a child is gender confused, or should they not? I'm saying the parents are the greatest asset you have when there's a child that is confused or struggling, and they need to know what's happening, and the parents and the teachers can be allies. Don't make them adversaries of each other. That's what this policy does. That's one of the things that it does.
Thank you.
And I hope you'll reject it.
Anyone else?
Hi. My name is James. I am an Old Bridge resident for about 20 years, teacher for 18 years. Not in Old Bridge, New York City. I don't want to talk about 57, 56. I just don't want to talk about that. I do want to address some of the things that were discussed here tonight, and I would ask that the Board of Education address some of the misinformation officially on the record tonight. I heard several things that are kind of heartbreaking, being a member of this community, and, you know, as a straight man, if it's heartbreaking to me, I can't even imagine what it's like to other members of the community. But I think the Board of Education has a responsibility to correct the record. And I'm asking you please to correct the record tonight on these particular issues. I heard a couple of people talk about the ability to, quote, protect the normal, straight, white kids, end quote. And somebody referred to normal kids being cisgendered. I would like the Board of Education to please affirm the belief that I'm hoping you have, that kids who are not straight and kids who are not white and kids who are not cisgendered are also normal. I heard people talk about the idea that teachers are groomers. I ask the board to please vocally, officially denounce this absurdity and stand in solidarity with the teachers in the Old Bridge School District. I ask you to assert to the public officially that they are not groomers. They are caring and loving members of this community who have the best interests of the students at heart. I heard people refer to the children of this community that we're not producing functional adults. We're not producing functional students, functional kids. In a room where there are young men and women operating equipment that maybe 2 people in this room know how to use. 90% of us, myself included, probably couldn't figure out how to reset the time on your microwave oven a couple of weeks ago. And these kids are up here producing a television show with the skills that they learned from Old Bridge school system. I ask that you denounce that rhetoric and affirm publicly that our students are growing up to be functional adults and that they are valued. I ask that you affirm publicly that being gay and being trans is not a mental illness, which is the basis of so many things that we've been hearing all night tonight, that somehow this is a mental illness that needs to be addressed. Please, please, for the benefit of our children, our brothers and sisters, our sons, our daughters, our children, please affirm publicly that being gay and being trans is not a mental illness. Thank you. And I also heard somebody say, and this is just a legal thing that I would like addressed, I also heard somebody say that somehow 5756 prohibits, and I think this is a quote, I wrote it quickly, prohibits the parents from being notified when their child is in mental crisis. That is absurd. It's against the law. I would like you please to correct that is absolutely not what 5756 does. So I eagerly await your responses to these. Thank you very much.
Good evening, board. Again, Christopher Palais, Old Bridge resident, 20 years. I have 2 daughters in this school system here. I don't think you need to address that. Those were mostly opinions, and you're entitled to our opinions. We're all entitled to our opinions. So, but thank you. You know, I came up before. I didn't know we were going to get a second chance to come back up. Didn't get a chance to actually use any way to kind of taper off some of the emotion in my last time. But even a simple query to ChatGPT makes no sense, makes all the sense that we stand here for tonight. And I'm just going to go through it. So, good evening. Today I want to discuss a sensitive topic. Yeah, it's a significant one. A policy that affirms children expressing behaviors in schools, specifically those considered outside societal norms. It's outside society's norms. It's a social. It's deviation, and it always has been. While inclusivity and understanding are vital, we must also consider the appropriateness and impact of such policies in an educational setting. This is a simple prompt. One little few words I gave it. Argument number one: age appropriateness. Our primary concern should be creating an age-appropriate, safe environment for all students. We've heard that from both sides. It's essential to balance inclusivity with developmental needs of the children. Also from both sides. Experts in child psychology emphasize the importance of navigating sexual identity issues with sensitivity, especially in those younger children whose understanding of these complex topics are still forming. Affirmation of certain behaviors or identities must be handled responsibly, ensuring it doesn't lead to confusion or misguidance about healthy sexual development. Role of education and parental involvement. Education's role is to foster learning and development when dealing with topics like sexual identity, especially those considered deviant by societal standards. Schools must work in tandem with parents. Parents have a fundamental right to be involved in the discussions about their children's development, including sexual identity and behavior. Policies should be developed collaboratively with input from educators, psychologists, and parents to ensure they meet the best interest of children. See, when you have a policy like 5756, you open the door. The slippery slope is now being greased. And you're able to have sexual deviance into your school and into your programs. It's sexual deviance. I know that the one over here who's on her phone, his phone, is actually not really, is following. We must protect the mental, emotional well-being of students.
Address the board. You have to, yeah, you have to.
We must protect the mental and emotional well-being.
Yes, no, sorry, you're done.
Schools need to be a haven for learning, not for deviance.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we got it.
Hi guys, I was going to talk before that. I apologize. I'm very, just with the board, please keep in mind, guys, this is the second year in a row we're dealing with this. We're starting to make our town meeting a state law and mandate forum. And we have people coming up here when they should be going to Trenton to talk about this stuff, not here. So when we're making decisions, do that. Now, with that, I'm Scott Mazzella. I'm a teacher. You know, I've heard so much about teachers tonight, and I don't know how many of us are here or what we're doing, but there's a gross mischaracterization of what we do. All right, now I got to calm down because that got me fired up. I'm a Trekkie. You didn't think I was going to go there next, but my students know I have a little Captain Kirk in my room, a little Spock, IDIC, and infinite diversity and infinite combinations. I know, Dave, it's going somewhere. In the movie Star Trek II, the saying was, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And the whole point of the movie was that one of the characters dies, and the whole major characters, they abandon everything about they love about the Starfleet and all that, and they go after this one because they care about him. And the point is, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one, but they don't. And teachers navigate this every single day. We always take in mind the needs of everyone, and the few, and the one. And none of us are here for that one. Everybody who comes up here complaining about this mandate isn't going to be the one who has to deal with that kid that we're trying, to protect. And we're not talking about this all class. We have a huge curriculum to do. You guys think we're in there saying like, all right guys, let's see, who wants to be gay today? All right, because I'm going to spend the next 45 minutes talking about, I can't get through my curriculum. I teach U.S. history. I need more school year just to get through it. Teachers are not groomers. We're not indoctrinators. We're not communists. I heard that again. You brought it up again, okay? Teachers are composers. Teachers are conducting an orchestra of beautiful instruments that all sound differently. Sometimes they sound off when they're by themselves. Sometimes they want to sound like a different instrument. We make it sound beautiful, and we want them all to sound wonderful, and we have to work with them individually. We have to work with them as small groups and as big groups to make a beautiful song at the end. We're not grooming anyone. We're making music, and if you think we're failing, I can't believe you come up here and say stuff like that. How many of our students get in front of these mics and do this? They're definitely paying attention in civics and in history. These guys up here, you mentioned this too. I mean, this is. I'm so damn proud. I'm so damn proud of what we do in this district. We have amazing schools. We have amazing programs. We have amazing school board. We have amazing superintendent, assistant superintendent. Joe's going to have to stay for 5-6 more years because he's amazing. Okay, so I love what we do. And I'm so sick of coming to these meetings where we focus on one thing that's not even a thing. Okay, we should be celebrating everything we do. And that's my job because I'm also the public relations coordinator. But it's like I come here, I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels. Okay, we're doing a great job and we love your kids no matter what they want to be called. You know, and we love you guys too. I love the parents. I love them. We're one big group. But I feel like we're getting lost in the mud here, in the muck. You know, let's be proud. Okay, I don't want to leave on a negative note. I want you to go out of here being proud of being Old Bridge people. You moved here for a reason. Okay, and if you don't live here and you get up here and talk, I know there's a concerted movement out there that must be organizing this because it happens at a lot of board meetings. That's dangerous. You have a right to talk. But the school board should not be making decisions based on private political organizations that come in and organize this stuff, or religious. Okay, so I hope you take that into account when you make your decisions. Okay, but remember, it's all about the needs of the many, but also the needs of the one. All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, old business. Any new business?
I have a few things I'd like to say. I think I have more notes at this meeting than I have any other one. My worry is if we repeal it, not only do you have to have the consensus to bring it back when things can be revised, but also not only the danger to the student, but what about the danger to the staff? Our kids go and have a safe corner drill. And if for a parent that hasn't been in the room, that's like an active shooter drill. The kids find the corner away from the door and the window, and they gather all of them into the area behind me, like as close as they can. We out one student who then takes it to the wrong way and retaliates against the staff member that told their parent. Now not only am I worrying about the student, I'm worrying about my staff. And I don't want to put the staff in that danger. Like, that's another whole layer to this. But Dave, to go to your point thing, and Chris, please answer this. If parents are active in their kids' education and ask the teachers, how are they doing? How are the kids doing? Unless the child says they're in danger, are the teachers allowed to answer that question honestly?
Yeah.
So it's
I
not
would
a
need
secret.
I would need more clarification of what you're asking, but
unless
the teachers cannot lie to parents. If you ask any question about your student's record, health record, academic record, the staff cannot lie to you as a parent.
So again, it's the active parents, the parents that are going to conferences and having that relationship with the parents. Those aren't the parents that don't know. It's the parents that don't provide that safe environment that the kids are worried about going home to. And as far as the self-discovery piece that came up before, I was a teenager. I know I changed my clothes at the bus stop. I put on lipstick. I listened to music my parents might not have liked. Maybe read a book that wasn't, the right genre my parents wanted. We all went through some kind of self-discovery. That's what teenagers is. So, and the other part of this I'm not getting with the conversation is we're talking gender identity, and there's been a lot of sexuality and sexual orientation brought into this conversation. That's not mentioned in this policy. So, to me, they're two different things. So, and to James' point, I think all of the kids are treated as normal. And with all the teachers that I interact with throughout the school year, I don't know any with agendas. Like Scott said, like, they just have curriculum they want to get through, worried when the principal's going to come and observe them, you know, are they going to perform awesome that day, and the kids actually paid attention and the teachers passed you know. And all you have to do is go to one of our graduations or listen to senior night and see where our students are going. Old Bridge students are awesome around the world. They're going amazing places. So I'm proud of Old Bridge. I think Old Bridge is doing awesome. So that's my 2 cents.
Any other new business?
I have a question. So to piggyback on Mr. Antonio's points, active parents, everyone's so focused on parental rights, but for the parents that are involved, you have parental rights all the time. I mean, the school stopped teaching cursive. You know what I did? I went to the library, I printed out cursive, and I brought it home to my daughter for her to learn cursive, okay? We're all parents, right? And we all love our kids, right? Parental rights doesn't just stop when they go to school. Chris, just for clarification, and maybe you could clarify, I can't. That parental rights policy that we have, the 3rd paragraph, it says something that the parents should, you know, they shall have information to the kids' medical health, well-being, and everything else like that?
Yeah.
Does that conflict with 56, 57, or 57, 56, whatever the policy
No,
is?
they can be read together. Excuse me. They can be read together in that the language in 9240 speaks about student records in terms of health, education, et cetera. To horribly simplify it, the report card, document, records, the file. Every discussion with a teacher or counselor does not necessarily make it into a student record per se. How are you today? The answer to how are you today, you know, there was discussion before about a normal kid. None of us were normal kids. There's no normal answer. So those two policies are not in conflict with each other necessarily. It would depend, as always, on the situation.
So let's say the parent that's actively involved in the child's life, the parent would like to find out, like to Mr. Cittadino's point as well, the parent would like to find out if my child is transitioning, if my child would like to be called Bonnie instead of Bill. The parent can call the school or write an email to the administrator of the school or Mr. Cittadino or Mrs. Hoker, and they can say, I would like to be notified if my child has this, this, and this. Yes? Regarding the policy, the parental rights policy?
Yes, the parent could make that request, and as always, it would be individually handled. In most cases, I'm sure that would lead to an immediate dialogue. As always, there would be exceptions to that rule, just like there are with every other interaction between a staff member and a student.
Right, but the parent could call, write an email,
Yes, the
ask
parent could.
for it, and the school would have to give it to them.
If it's a record, yes.
Okay, right, so if the child would like to go as like Bonnie instead of Bill or Bill instead of Bonnie, the parent writes an email and says, I would like to notify if my child decides to change genders or goes by a different identity, I would like to be notified. Can the parent be notified about that? Or does 5756 not does that does 50, thank you. I'm not a businessman, I'm a plumber. So yeah, does it supersede?
5756 simply says that there is no affirmative duty for the teacher to, or whatever school employee, to proactively make that call based on any discussion that is had. If it becomes a record, if there is a name change in any student records, all parents and legal guardians are immediately have that access.
Right, so parents, if you're actively involved, do your job, be a parent. And Chris, just to drive it home, the teachers aren't prohibited, they're just not required to notify. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay.
Just my final topic on it, not so much about the policy, but the practice that we have here in Old Bridge. And I've spoken to some of our counselors, some of our teachers, and some of our students in the LGBTQ platform. And what has been our practice is that if we have a student who comes and has a conversation with, usually it's as a counselor, the counselors work with the student to build up that relationship, to build up that dialogue, to be that bridge for that communication process. There's no staff member here. Our staff members aren't tremendous, far from groomers. They're tremendous people, and they work hard to be that relationship, that bridge to the family. And every one of those situations from the counselors that I've spoken to, the principals that I've spoken to, there's not one of the 1/3 of a percentage point here of our student base that we're talking about that the parents aren't not knowledgeable of the child's decision. And I think that's the important thing that our staff does. They work to be the advocate for our students. They work towards students to be advocates for themselves, but they'll also be that bridge of information. And to do anything less to attack them anyway, you know, Mr. Kunto makes a great point. I don't know if that's the point you're trying to make, is that to attack teachers, they're the first person to be standing in front of your kids when we do these lockdown drills. They're the ones to put their body in front of them. Ask yourself how many teachers have been murdered across this country in the past 5 years by active shooter situations, when the targets were kids, but the teachers put themselves in harm's way. And to come to, you know, this place where we're going to say the teachers are the problem. Our teachers do a great job. You know, and we all don't have to have the same opinion, but that was the lowest thing I've ever seen in education, was for an adult to bully a kid in our schools. If that's what Old Bridge has become, and if anybody here stands for that and says that's a good thing, then we should all, you know, be ashamed of ourselves. We have no place in schools. If anybody standing here, sitting here tonight, says that was a good moment today, that was disgusting.
Any other board comments?
Just one more thing. I just want to point out to Mr. Mazzella and to what Mr. Cittadino just said. There's bad everything in every profession. But I'm willing to put my life on the line to say that 98% of the teachers are exactly like Mr. Mazzella. And if you saw the way that he rose up from that desk and defended the student, okay? There's thousands of other teachers just like him that would rise up and, like to Mr. Cittadino's point, put their body in between harm and safety. And what he displayed to rise up as quick as he did and try to shut it down as fast as he did, I believe deserves some accommodation. So, Mr. Mazzella, thank you. And it was good. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No. Nope, sorry. So we will not be going to executive session. So can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Marqueta moves. I'll second. Salado second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The board is adjourned at 10:02 p.m. Good night.